Hello everyone, my name is Slade, I'll be your host, and welcome to Star Wars Did You Know? The devices known as Force Detectors, or Jedi Readers, were built by the Empire to aid their Jedi hunters, such as members of the Inquisitorius, and were powered by rare Thyssen crystals, which were found only on the planet Mimban. Despite its relative complexity, the device's construction was relatively simple, comprised of a central control box with a holographic display and two sensor paddles, connected by wire to the control box. An individual was placed between the two paddles, and a display of the individual would appear in a hologram. If the user was force sensitive, a blue aura would surround their hologram, whereas if a user was somehow tainted by the dark side, they would in turn have a red aura around them. This enabled Palpatine's Force hunters to determine the nature of those they were seeking during their hunts. The device would fall out of use following Palpatine's defeat and the collapse of the Inquisitorius' other dark side forces. However, following the liberation of Coruscant, several of these devices were discovered by Wedge Antilles and Luke Skywalker. Skywalker, who at the time was recruiting for his newly formed Jedi Praxium, would use these force detectors to find his students, even going so far as to give a set to Landa Calrissian and ask him to be on the lookout for anyone who might also be force sensitive, and thereby perhaps be a candidate for Luke's Jedi Praxium. It isn't clear exactly which Force users who first came to the Praxium were selected using the Force Detector. However, it is known that eventually Luke ceased using the Force Detector, deeming it to be rather too selective or perhaps judgmental, and the devices fell out of use more or less entirely, although occasionally they were used to detect the presence of the dark side within a specific Force user. However, one case of their use did continue even after Luke had chosen to retire them, more or less, and that was in the case of the Dark Jedi Brachus, who stole some of these devices to use as recruiting tools for his Shadow Academy. Aside from this one other use, it is unknown if any other factions in the galaxy ever made use of the Force Detector. If perhaps members of the Imperial Remnant used them to detect Jedi or Force sensitives within their ranks, or if even some bounty hunters hunting Jedi might have made use of them. We're not even completely sure how many of these devices existed, or may have been destroyed. It is even unclear exactly how many Luke and Wedge found on Coruscant, and thereby how many were at the Jedi Praxium or the Shadow Academy. And that makes these devices rather interesting for potential story development, if anyone is curious to do so. It should be noted that this is part of the Legends canon, and the Disney canon does not currently recognize these devices. Although with all things Legends, there is always the possibility that Disney will notice these devices and decide to make use of them at a later date. Alright everyone, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to like and subscribe. There'll be more content coming. If you'd like to support the channel on Patreon, please do so. Every little bit helps. Until next time, this is your host Slade, and this has been Star Wars Did You Know?